renewal in this system is forcing smaller landlords like myself, like Silvio Solario, who testified in Mount Vernon, out of this industry due to the constant enactment of ridiculously low guidelines, especially that of last year, and the lack of addressing of what we call low rents. As such, I am once again here tonight to speak to the need of a low rent guideline. Case in point, 15% of a 21-family building in Yonkers that my family owns 15% of a 21-family building in Yonkers that my family owns houses units with rents well below market. For example, 2A, a 2-bedroom, rents for $416.56 a month. The market rent is $1,700. That's $1,284.44 below market. Unit 1F, also a 2-bedroom, as well, rents for $741. The market rent is also $1,700. That's $959 below market. Each year we ask the question, why should those paying rents at market subsidize those paying rents well below market? After all, we pay market rates for gas, insurance, taxes, overall repairs to the property, etc. My family and I have gone above and beyond to keep the level of services at our complex up to par. But it's simply too much, because with most smaller landlords, there simply is not enough to go around. You see, when you have this type of a loss which is created through no fault of your own management, the market rents simply cannot subsidize those that are below market, as there are not enough units in the building. At the end of the day, numbers are black and white, and a loss is a loss. Each year I've spoken at these hearings, I state that the failure to properly address these low rents, coupled with very low guidelines, is forcing smaller landlords, again, I repeat, out of this industry, out of business, if you will. Therefore, what can be done? If these buildings are a co-op or condo, there will be an assessment added to the monthly maintenance when an excessive bill comes in. As you well are aware, we cannot do that as owners of apartment, ETPA apartment buildings. So again, I ask, what is the solution? How can the pain, if you will, of these low rents be shared? Simply put, I move that there should be a separate addendum added to the legislation to properly address this issue of low rents. Therefore, in addition to a proper increase, you give a low rent guideline to bring these tenants up to market. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Don't sit down. I should have said earlier that we now have an opportunity after each speaker for the board members, if they wish to comment or ask questions. And I also want to point out something that I pointed out of Mount Vernon. You probably, or you may have noticed that we are not necessarily taking copious notes, which in the past we used to do as a rule. That's because Chuck always provides us with the transcripts of the proceedings. So, I just don't want anybody to think that we're not really paying attention and we're going to walk out of here without knowing what people said, because we do have access to all of the transcripts of these speakers. That being said, Mr. Turson.
Thank you very much. Do you have a number in mind as the maximum for the low rent guideline? In other words, up to X dollars should be considered the low rent guideline, the additional low rent?
Do I have a number of what the rent is
No,
going
it's
to
only
be?
like, and I'm just picking a number out of the air. I don't want to pick a number out of the air. X dollars, anything up to X dollars would be the low rent. So what would that number, do you have in mind what that number would be?
Do you understand the question?
Yeah, I would think if a tenant pays under $500, that's considered a low rent.
500, so up to 500.
Yeah.
Because you have one you just mentioned, okay.
Well, they're still at the 741, but I mean, the problem that we have, like when I mentioned the 41656, that apartment, now the tenant passed away. So the new tenant, by succession rights, has rights to that apartment, and they can well afford. The system is skewed, it's not balanced, and deed share doesn't require anybody to provide documentation to prove that they're entitled to these rents.
What is the new tenant paying?
The same rent, because they got the mother died, and the son lives in the apartment. So by succession rights, they pay the same amount.
I didn't hear that part.
So, the son can well afford a higher rent, but as you know, my hands are tied. And again, it's not fair to those tenants who need.
Well, as you know, affordability there's no means test.
No, I'm not saying affordability, but what I'm saying is if you're going to have.
That's not necessarily relevant.
No, but I'm saying if somebody can afford an apartment, wouldn't you want to give somebody at 41656 who couldn't afford the apartment rights to that apartment rather than a son who can afford the apartment, maybe he can pay market somewhere else? It's not fair.
Anybody else? Questions? Comments? Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Manzelli. Tamara Stewart. And spokesperson?
Good evening again, board members, advocates, and my fellow citizens. My name is Tamara Stewart, and I live in Mount Vernon. Last week, I thanked you for passing low rent increases last year, and I told you that many tenants continue to be rent burdened, often paying over 50% of their incomes for rent. My mom is among those tenants who are handing over the lion's share of their incomes for rent. Poor health prevents my mom, Joan Wilson, from being here tonight to testify on her own behalf. She asked me to share her situation with you. My mom lives at 45 Park Avenue in Mount Vernon, and she's been in her small studio apartment for 25 years. My mom's total income consists of $975 from Social Security, of which she pays $627.25 per month for rent. Blessedly, Mom's rent is frozen through SCREE. However, she still struggles to survive. Mom has a number of neighbors who are also seniors, and several of them don't meet all of SCREE's eligibility guidelines. They're struggling too. One of my mom's neighbors from the 30 Cottage Avenue side of the building spoke at last week's Mount Vernon hearing about another factor that this body should consider in your deliberations, which is that of the provision of services to tenants. Similar to the situation at my complex, my mom's building has been plagued by service issues, including a leaky roof, plumbing leaks, broken entrance doors, low or no heat, and unreliable elevators. My mom is wheelchair bound, and she's had to cancel half a dozen doctor's appointments over the past 3 months because the elevator on her side of the building is regularly out of service. I wrote about tenant safety concerns in the September and October 2015 issues of the Mount Vernon Inquirer, which I've attached for your convenience. Although there are over 300 complaints on file with the Mount Vernon Building Department, 430 Cottage Avenue, the owner has stubbornly continued to neglect the property, and tenants continue to pay for services that they're not receiving. To date, almost all of the service issues persist, and my mom has become reluctant to leave her apartment for fear that she won't be able to get back upstairs to the 7th floor when she's ready to go home. While not all landlords neglect their properties and not all tenants are struggling to survive, the issues of affordability and value for rent paid highlighted by these anecdotes are neither isolated nor exaggerated. Landlords' profits have increased over the past couple of years due to lower fuel costs coupled with milder winters. Meanwhile, tenants are paying more and receiving less. Homelessness in Westchester is rising, largely as a result of unaffordable rents, and tenant protections afforded by ETPA have been eroded over the past 2 decades, leaving the playing field tilted heavily in favor of landlords. Please take a stand for fair and affordable rents and pass 0% increases for the coming year. Thank you in advance for your thoughtful consideration. Westchester tenants are counting on you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Do any of the board members have questions or comments?
Good evening, Mr. Stewart. Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned the tenants who can't afford units. What would you do regarding the tenants, as Mr. Fazeli said, who can well afford the units?
I think that legislatively, that's an issue that deserves to be looked at.
Do you think it's the type of situation where we should acquire and provide an increase for those who can afford, let's say by succession rates?
Well, part of the difficulty that I see is that there are far more tenants are struggling to pay whatever they're paying, whether it's market rate, whether it's whatever else. I talk to people all the time. Dennis sees them in his office, and they're over in landlord tenant court in Mount Vernon because people's incomes are not keeping up with the cost of rent. You know, anecdotally, are there going to be occasionally some tenants who, you know, who could afford to pay more? I'm sure that happens occasionally. But there's far more evidence for the ones that cannot than ones who can. Now, if the solution is for the legislation to introduce something that has a means test or whatever, then the legislative body should look at that. I know that that's not your task here, and that's not, you know, that's not something that, I don't lose sleep over that. Maybe you do. I lose sleep over the seniors that I know who are being forced out of their homes and are going into the shelter. Those are the people that
I don't like to cut off any discussion here, but I think I will. What you said at the end of your statement, you know, bears repeating. There is no means test that we have or that the law provides for. As it's not, as a former board member used to refer to as social welfare program. This is, and you're right, the state legislature can change the law if
they see fit.
they see fit to do so. But this board, you know, will not consider in our deliberations whether or not anybody can afford or not afford to pay a higher rent, a lower rent, and so forth. So it's outside of our purview, and it's not part of what we look at. If you want to add something, Chuck? Okay. Anybody else?
The only means test that we do is for street roof.
We don't do that.
Strange look at municipalities.
The HCR.
Right, all right. But I don't want to confuse anything. We do not review people's incomes or their ability to pay rent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Harold Danziger.
Before he starts timing. I actually printed out, this is longer than what I'm reading because I can never get through what I want to say.
You talk fast.
Well, I'm going to, I cut it down a bit, but that's why I printed out
Thank you. I
everything.
appreciate that. I should have said earlier that, you know, if you have anything to give to the board, we would be very happy to.
I know you're getting a little bit from the relay, so I won't talk quite as fast as I was going to talk.
Talk the way you feel most comfortable.
Well, not in front of a group, that's for sure. Okay, hi, my name is Carol Danziger. I have an 18-unit building in Mamaroneck that is 100% stabilized. 14 of the 18 units are long-term tenants that have been with us on average over 10 years. We have 3 tenants that have been there over 50 years, and they all pay less than $600 a month in rent. Only 4 units tend to turn over frequently. Tenant groups speak every year about vacancy leases and how owners already make their profits worth millions of dollars based on these vacancy increases. Well, for many years, I have been outraged by this statement. The board has provided data from HCR regarding rental payments and vacancy leases. Owners provide 2 figures to HCR, legal registered rents and what HCR calls preferential rent, which is the actual amount the tenant pays. HCR and probably the board are aware that the information provided by HCR on vacancy leases only contains data on legal rents. In my 4 units that turn over, the legal rents are close to or just over $2,000. Each vacancy increases the legal rent by 5 to 20% as mandated by HCR, but the preferential rent, the actual rent paid, goes up very little and most times not at all. It's great on paper to have units that appear to give us a 20% increase in income when re-rented, but we don't get that because it's not what we rent them for, and HCR knows that. My building relies almost solely on annual increases to cover inflation. the increases that this board votes on every year. Just this year, my insurance went up $3,000. It's a 19% increase. Utilities so far are up $858, which is a 10% increase. Without any annual increases in rent, we have no way to cover these increases year over year. Every year, we hear tenants speak of the difficulties in paying rent. And believe me, I work for a nonprofit. We know that rent is a difficult issue in Westchester. But every year, I believe that these tenant stories are the only factor the board considers. Every year, I hope to say something that resonates with the board. Please tell me what I can say to make you understand the impact you're having on owners, especially the smaller owners. We provide documentation each and every year on increases to taxes, insurance, and utilities to corroborate what we speak about. Yet a handful of tenants speak about hardships and all our data seems to become irrelevant. Tenant groups speak of huge profits from vacancy leases, ones I will never see, and our data becomes irrelevant. Does the board receive documentation with regard to tenant hardships? Does the board determine these hardships apply to all tenants in TPA buildings? Because if you don't have any of this information, how are you possibly making a fair and informed decision based on hardships? Perhaps HCR or other government agencies like Section 8 or HUD should take steps to assist the needs of tenants that speak here and others that are suffering these hardships. That is their purpose, and not make it the responsibility of private business owners like myself. Please find a way to assist the tenants that desperately need it, instead of condemning ETPA owners by not giving them any way to cover inflation and maintain their businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask you a question for purposes of clarification.
I hope I can answer.
I'm sure you can answer. I just want to see if I really, understood what your point was with regard to preferential rents. I mean, you said, and we've had testimony on this before, Matt Vernon, the subject came up in any event. The people who pay preferential rents are those, I assume, whose legal rents are well over the
Yes.
market rate.
Yeah, and yes.
But then, right after you discussed that, you said, well, you really rely on the yearly percentage, on the percentage increases that this board made.
Yes.
So is it,
Mhm.
I sort of infer from that
Mhm.
that you have a significant number of tenants who pay rents that are so low that these percentage increases will be meaningful and they will
Yes.
be subject to those increases.
Yeah, because like I said, 14 of the 18 units in my building don't really have turnovers. I mean, they've been there for many, many, many years. So there is no vacancy increase because they're not going anywhere. I mean, we take pride in our building. I mean, I always welcome anyone to come and look at our building. We keep it well. We put basically almost every dollar we make back into it to keep it what it should be. I mean, and I know a lot of owners don't do that, and they should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, the stories that we hear about run-down buildings, I think is just terrible. But when I don't have units that are turning over, and the 4 that do already have legal rents that are so high that they're often re-renting for what they were renting for,
Okay.
then there's
That
no
really
increase.
That really does,
Yeah.
That's kind of what I
Yeah, I mean,
took away
0%.
from your presentation, but I
0%
wanted to
scares
make
us.
sure I understood what you were getting at.
Yeah, it's scary.
So, anybody else? Ken?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Hansinger. Can you tell me if you have any of your expense items that have gone up significantly in the last year or so?
I mean, everything, my insurance, I said, had gone up $3,000. It went from $16,000 to $19,000.
And what about how much are your real estate taxes?
My real estate taxes are about $45,000. They're about 25% of our rent roll, just under 25%. And our insurance is about 10%, 12%. So, I mean, they're big ticket items. I mean, we have, and I mean, those are the items that there's nothing I can do about. They're gonna keep going up, and we need somehow to cover, some way to cover that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ursula DeResta.
Good evening, my Guidelines Board members. I speak to you this evening as a property manager for D-Law Ray Inc., a small property management business that includes a 22-family residential apartment building on Warburton Avenue that is under ETPA control, and a smaller 3-unit building on Central Park Avenue that is not under ETPA control. These buildings, both located in Yonkers, have been family-owned for over 40 years. This statement expands upon the one made last year to illustrate the evolving problems our industry faces when dealing with tenants and their respective assistance agencies. Basically, a sense of empowerment has evolved in which the assistance agencies are exhibiting a take-it-or-leave-it attitude. This extends to how they work with landlords and property managers when negotiating lease terms and rent payment. Unilateral changes in rent payment terms, refusal to pay retroactive rent increases allowed by DHCR for an NCI. Another confrontational situation now occurs when during an annual inspection, their client's apartment is failed because of damage to fixtures caused by the tenant's negligence or their slovenly behavior that results in pests around unclean stoves and unwashed dishes. Also, the bathroom mildew around tubs. The landlord is penalized for the tenant's poor cleaning and maintenance of their apartment. The landlord is denied rent until the situation is resolved or they issue a punitive fine. The tenant is not held accountable for their actions, rather they require that the landlord take full responsibility. Most recently, some assistant agencies are also exhibiting attitudes that can only be described as geographically discriminatory. Specifically, with CVR, the rent they agreed to pay for an apartment now also considers a geographical location of a building rather than the condition and the amenities of the apartment within the building. Their preferred geographic locations are referred to as opportunity areas, and they offer a higher payment standard for comparable apartments. Such behavior reduces the incentive of a landlord to enhance their accommodations, especially if the landlord's geographically location is not on their opportunity area list. This is a type of discrimination to landlords and tenants that do not have apartments in the more exclusive school districts. I will give you some examples of recent problems I've had with some of the agencies. I had a White Plains CVR Section 8 applicant who was a military vet with a voucher for $1,400. After the apartment inspection that took over 2 weeks to schedule, Section 8 came back with an offer of only $1,368 a month because the veteran was not working and his budget could not handle the $32 difference. The decision to tell the landlord what they wanted to pay was made 3 weeks after initiating the application process, knowing full well that landlords would most probably accept the lower rent rather than lose another month of rental income. Yonkers Municipal Housing Section 8 does not offer the same monthly rental voucher as CVR Section 8. I was quoted $100 less for a voucher for the same apartment. They also did not agree to pay the retroactive DCHR NCI increase that was granted for a new roof, whereas White Plains CVR did pay the retroactive increase. Very confusing to the landlords. Most recently, another White Plains CVR Section 8 veteran applied for an apartment and he had poor credit and owed a lot of money for tax liens. I agreed to accept him after many emails with his caseworker because I was assured that his portion of the monthly rent was only $208 and well within his capacity to pay. A month after he's in the apartment, Section 8 sends me a notice that the tenant's portion of the monthly rent would be $703 a month. I would never have accepted him if Section 8 had done its due diligence on the financial budget of that tenant. I am hoping the tenant can meet his financial obligations during the lease term, and that I am not in court for non-payment of rent, which is a very lengthy process in the Yonkers courts. Generally, it takes up to 6 months of lost revenue before the tenant is finally evicted. In conclusion, my rental income has been reduced due to agency delays in concluding lease negotiations, failure of assistance agencies to pay allowed rent increases, incurring expenses to address tenant negligence or slovenly behavior, dishonest representation of their client's ability to pay the asking rent, and legal expenses incurred to evict a tenant that compel them to pay the rent. The assistant agencies are empowered by the source of income law. Their cavalier attitude that this is the price of doing business is not now, nor has ever been, an acceptable business practice. Therefore, I am requesting a rent increase to offset these losses that are now occurring annually and represent a major expense item. Thank you.
Has all your testimony, you said you have one ETPA building and 3 buildings that are not,
No, one is ETK and one's a small unit, 3 units. That's not ETK.
that's not ET, right, you have one ETPA building.
Yes,
Correct.
that's 22 family.
Right. Has your testimony all been related to that building? I'm
Yes.
confused.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Anybody have
Yes.
questions or comments? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dennis, I'm ready.
There's 3 separate handouts.
Okay, go ahead.
Just bear with us so that everybody can give their full attention.
Madam Chair, members of the board, members of the audience, my name is Dennis Hanley. I'm the Executive Director of Mount Vernon United Tenants. Thank you for the opportunity to make a presentation here. I have 3 brief handouts. One is, the first one is about selected housing characteristics of Dorset County. Just because I referred my comments to the Mount Vernon hearing about the percentage of renters who are spending more than 30% of their income, which is the national guideline for the rent burden. And so I just had to hear the paper from that Office of the State Controller. 55.8, 56% of renters in Westchester are rent burdened. That means they're having trouble paying the rent and paying the rest of their expenses. I just wanted to have that as a background. Secondly, maybe you saw in Sunday's paper, there was a letter to the editor, Rent Bubble Slams Westchester's Working Class Families. The gentleman from Tuckahoe, Jeff Meyer, is retired and he's doing volunteer work at the food bank. And he was really shocked by talking to the people about what was happening in their lives. And there's the whole mythology about people going to food pantries, soup kitchens, stuff like that, what he found, most of them are working, but most of them are spending, I mean, his rent bubble is pretty shocking. He said that people he's talking about spending 75% of their income for rent. I know in my office, I'm dealing with a lot of people spending 50, 60%, and those people are behind the eight ball. Those people come to me to stop their evictions. That happens on a regular basis. And this board does have some responsibility about that, because the generous guidelines have been granted mostly before your time with the 100% highest confidence. But you can hear, even from the landlord's statements, that they've got so many units at market, now they have to rent them less than market. I mean, just because this board and other loopholes in the state law have allowed rents to get rent stabilized, rents which traditionally been well below market, are now exceeding market in so many cases. And what I've talked about in the last few years, and what I just mentioned at the last hearing, Mount Vernon hearing, without having the numbers, I said I'll focus on vacancies again, and I projected, I guessed, I didn't have to guess, it was a pretty safe guess, I thought, that based upon the schedules that would come out, the vacancies are going to show huge, huge increases for the landlords again, as they do every year. The vacancies is where the landlords make their money. So I just did a little breakdown just from what the schedules show. 1 year units have become vacant. There was 917, took a 1 year renewal on vacant apartments. The rent prior to the vacancy was $16.68. That was the average rent for those 917 units. The average rent after that, $1,937. That's a $269 increase. This is from their report, okay? 917 by times 269, that's $246,673 for the increase. That's a monthly increase, okay? For the 2-year leases, 412 units became vacant. The prior monthly rent was $16.70. It went up now. This is the average rent for these 2-year things. Went up to $2,030. When we hear about these, we're not talking about poverty. This is the average rent. They're getting over $2,000 a month. Okay, so there's $360 a month increase an average for 412 units. That adds up to $148,260. So the monthly increase for those units totals $394,993. That's just 1 month's increase for the landlords, okay? And that was based upon your schedules for 14,276 units. According to the calendars, the schedules, that was 54% of the units that were reported. Based upon that, if you extrapolate that to 100%, you're talking about monthly increases to the landlord's pockets of $731,468. Not bad. That's a month. Now let's do that, the numbers by 12 months. That's one annual increase. The annual increase that the landlords get without any 0% guidelines, $8,777,616. That's what the landlords are putting in their pockets, okay, without you guys giving any guideline increase. Almost $9 million increase, okay? Now, you can't be exact and stuff like that because some of these are projections, but you get the picture. Now, Genevieve Roach will be here on Wednesday. She's going to do a more detailed analysis that will show more of the guideline increases with that also. Just on the vacancies, you can see she's also going to do 1 and 2 years on the 2-year, 1 and 2 and how it adds up. So you can still the same figure. She's going to come up with almost like $12 million on the increase on the first year too. So you can see that the landlords are doing quite well. Now some landlords are going to say, oh, they're not getting these and things like that. Can't take that to the bank. You can take this stuff to the bank. This is the DHR figures. This is what's reported, okay? And I see it all the time.
I just want to say something. We didn't get any increases. No increases in the last 2 years.
Sir, we can't do that.
I'm sorry.
Please don't interrupt.
I'm going to do a response to this letter to just talk about some of the practical difficulties that I realize when these rent bubbles or these rent burdens that people deal with. People crying, coming to my office crying, threatening suicide because they keep on getting these rent increases. You can't find, look in the term look in what the month is. You can't find an apartment here in Westcliff for under $1,800. I mean, I get a list every week. I get all the vacancy lists from WRO and HDSW. all are at $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 for one bedrooms, okay? The landlords are not hurting, you just can't take, and it's very disingenuous. I deal with this stuff on a regular basis in my office. I welcome any one of the board members to come to my office and see what it's like, see what the real effects of the increases have been. Thank you.
Don't sit down. Sherson, finger, I know your hands are going to go up. Mr. Sherson,
Thank you. Mr. Henry, question for you. The figures that you're using, are these based on the legal rents?
No, these are the schedules,
Registered rents?
these are the schedules that DHR just
I
released.
understand, it's based on the registered rents, correct? Legal registered rent,
Legal regulator.
right?
I assume so, yeah.
Yes, okay.
That's what the landlords are reporting.
I understand, but if there's a preferential rent, for example, I mean, you have here the monthly rent after vacancy 1937, but it's possible, of course, if there's a preferential rent, that won't be reflected on here, correct?
No, it should be. This is what the landlords are reporting.
They're reporting the legal rent.
Well, they, in some cases, they're responsible to get it.
No, I'm talking about, but if there's a preferential rent, that's not in the figures that DHCR gets. Because
I don't know.
The
well,
preferential
no,
rents.
you're correct, we know that.
Well,
You don't,
I'm
you
just-
and Dennis don't have to go through this
I'm just trying to
exercise.
point out that if there's a preferential rent, that it will be lower than the figures you have on here, correct?
Yeah. Not by much.
Since you are concentrating on vacancies, and I just would like you to explain to me what would you say to Miss Danziger?
Ms. who?
Miss Danziger,
Oh,
who
okay.
was just here on the podium, and she is a small owner. She doesn't have the vacancies that you talk about. We have to make a decision here on a fair basis.
Yeah.
So I would like you to tell me, what would you tell her?
Well, I mean, the departments will eventually turn over. I mean, she did mention sometimes there's been rights of succession. We help people with rights of succession, because that's in the law also. We're just going on a public policy thing. I know they trot out a lot of small limits, and some small limits do have some different, I'm not saying they don't. But they've chosen to be in this business, okay? And there's generous allowances granted for landlords in a lot of different ways. And I mean, that's a business decision they have to make. The numbers talk about what's reported by DHR. This is DHR figures, not my figures. Nobody forced anybody to buy a building. Nobody's forced anybody to get into the business. I mean, it's a business decision that they make. And there's plenty of, they can do major capital improvements. There's a lot of ways landlords can raise rents. They can do individual apartment improvements. Even when an apartment becomes vacant, they can do that.
Elsa, do you want to follow up? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Dannery. Our final speaker is Jason Siciliano. It's not from
That's very good. That's very good.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jason Sciano, and I'm president of Levitt First Associates in Tarrytown, New York. We are licensed insurance brokers with 48 years of experience as one of Westchester's largest brokers for placement of real estate insurance, insuring hundreds of condominiums, cooperative apartments, and rental apartments. We represent the area's largest insurers of real estate and insurance advisors to the Building and Realty Institute and the Apartment Owners Advisory Council, who have asked me to make comments on the insurance market relative to the apartment buildings in Westchester County. Numbers don't lie, and certainly the DHCR numbers are instructive when comparing insurance premium increases to rent increases the past 5 years. Cumulative one-year rent increases over the last 5 years, including last year's generous 0% increase, total 7.5%. Cumulative DHCR reported insurance premium increases during the same 5-year period from the DHCR reports, 29%. That's right. Rent percentage increases over the past 5 years have been less than 1/3 of insurance premium percentage increases. Opposing testimony will be quick to point out that comparing insurance premium increase percentages to rent increase percentages in a vacuum is not appropriate, since the large disparity has not heavily affected the net income, aka cash flow, on reports. But while numbers don't lie, they also don't tell the entire story. That's definitely the case when it comes to insurance. Now more than ever, landlords take on more risk, either in order to keep up their premiums manageable by reducing their deductibles, or by choosing to forego coverages such as water coverages in order to keep premiums down. The full story also includes constant dilemma on whether or not to make or defer maintenance, knowing that eventually deferred maintenance can result in higher insurance premiums or lower quality coverage, not to mention decreased quality of living for tenants. In fact, over time, landlords have increased repair and maintenance expense on their properties from 13.5% of total expenses on the 2011 DHCR reports to a 7-year high of 16.5% last year in 2016. In addition, the numbers don't tell the full story when it comes to the business of owning property, especially as it relates to Mr. Handretty's comments regarding landlords doing quite well and landlords who have chosen to be in this business just as tenants who have chosen to live in Westchester. There are very few businesses in this country which involve putting so much of one's own capital and savings at risk. If you're running a lawn care business, you buy some lawnmowers and some trucks, and that's it. If you're running an insurance business, you need to invest in a lot of good people. But few businesses require so much of one's own money be committed to an asset of bricks and mortar, which may or may not be sellable when your landlord or his family or her family needs the money. Also, a large part of the value of landlords' buildings, often along with personal assets, are pledged to the banks in exchange for mortgages. If you don't believe me on this, ask yourself, why is loan interest the single largest expense by far after real estate taxes on the DHCR reports? Despite landlords' tremendous financial risk, this board has often seemed content on maintaining the status quo. 0%? Heaven forbid landlords make a dime more in profit this year than last. When federal interest rates, which have been suppressed for years, double or more back to historically normal levels, will this board see fit to issue a 5 to 10% increase to keep landlords at status quo? Until such time, in the wake of a mere 1% average increase over the last 3 years, please consider a fair increase this year. Thank you.
Ms. Newman,
To paraphrase your last sentence, what would be a fair?
You know, I'm not in the industry, so I'd rather not comment on that. I think it's something significantly more than the average 1% over the last 3
we're not the
years.
Senate Intelligence Committee.
Sorry?
I said, we're not the Senate Intelligence Committee.
I mean, honestly, I think that the last 3 years are instructive. An average of 1% relative to the particular insurance expense that I pointed out, or any number of other line items. I think that the real driver of the bottom line cash flow that's in the report is abnormally low interest rates. And you know, you need to ask yourself if status quo is the goal for rents during this time when interest rates are so low. You know, are you going to be fair on the flip side to the landlords who have so much at risk and so much money tied up in a illiquid asset when interest rates shoot up? And I just think it should be managed, in small amounts over time, rather than doing nothing, as was the case last year.
Board members, anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I just want to make a couple of announcements about our upcoming public hearing and meetings. We have another public hearing, the final one, at the Riverfront Library in Yonkers on Wednesday, June 14th. So that's a couple of days. It's 1 Larkin Center is the address, and it's at 7 p.m. That will be our final public hearing for this year. Dennis handwriting already, gave away at least one speaker, what she was going to say. Tuesday, June 20th, at Iona College, this is a new venue for us. The address, if you need it, is 48 Mayflower Avenue. It's Driscoll Hall, 2nd floor in New Rochelle. So New Rochelle is figuring heavily into our deliberations. That will be for the tenant and owner board representatives to give us to present their positions. They will have, I believe it's 20 minutes each. The board will be able to ask questions and so forth, but it's not a meeting at which the public is invited to make any presentations or ask questions. It's really for the board. But of course, we would welcome, and do welcome, at this very important session, your presence. The following Tuesday, June 27, 1 week later, again at 7 p.m. in this room, we will have the tenant and owner representatives on the board if they wish to rebut anything that was said the prior week. We'll have, at that time, that'll be the last meeting, and we will be setting the rent guidelines for the following period, starting October 1. And we really hope that you're able to come to the next public hearing, which I have a feeling will be well attended. That's what I think, but we don't know. Anyway, you're very welcome, and in fact, we hope you come as well as to the tenant and owner board presentations, and following week to the meeting with the rebuttals and motions for rent guidelines and discussion. Any further? Does the board have anything further? Well, in that case, how about a motion to adjourn from May Barnes, second, Elliot Cherson. Any discussion? I don't think so. All in favor of adjourning? Everybody's in favor. We're adjourned.